In the news this week, campaigners remain resolute after their concerns over the named person scheme are rejected. Criticism of Rob Marris' assisted suicide bill mounts ahead of a debate in the Commons, and a film about the power of prayer is a US box office hit. Hello, and welcome to this week's news bulletin from the Christian Institute. Campaigners today vowed to fight on after Scotland's highest court rejected their concerns over the Scottish Government's controversial named person scheme. In a written judgment, the Inner House of the Court of Session ruled that the legislation does not conflict with human rights or data protection laws. Responding to the ruling, campaign group No to Named Persons said there were some positive aspects, but that the decision would be appealed to the Supreme Court or, if necessary, Europe. Simon Calvert is spokesman for the group.
Well, clearly this is a disappointing ruling. There are some positives in that the court seems to agree that parents should be able to reject approaches from the named person. The court seems to agree that there shouldn't be dramatic new data sharing powers. Unfortunately, that is what the legislation does, and we think that the court has failed to grasp that. We think that the court hasn't properly engaged with the human rights arguments and with the data protection law, so we think that there are strong grounds for appeal. And there's so much at stake, really, that we feel we have to pursue this all the way.
Opposition to Rob Marris' assisted suicide bill at Westminster is continuing to mount as a Conservative MP and more than 30 church leaders raise their concerns about the plans. In an article for the Eastbourne Herald, Caroline Ansell, the MP for Eastbourne and Willingdon, warned that legislating for assisted suicide would put vulnerable people under pressure to end their lives. We would be legitimising the fears and anxieties of so many sick who worry they are a burden on their family, the NHS or wider society. Changing the law could place pressure on people. There is no safeguard sufficient to stop a person feeling a burden. More than 30 church leaders from Marris-owned city of Wolverhampton wrote him an open letter saying they have no choice but to speak out for the many who disagree strongly with it and feel endangered by it. The letter also criticised the pro-assisted suicide lobby for misusing the term dignity in its arguments. It is an attempt to apply emotional pressure on us all to permit assisted suicide, lest we should be viewed as heartless and uncaring. It seeks to portray the death of someone who in any way suffers as somehow undignified, something we should be ashamed of permitting. The bill will be debated in the House of Commons next Friday. New measures intended to protect gambling addicts from dangerous fixed odds betting terminals, or FOBTs, are failing, according to a new report. A study by the Responsible Gambling Trust shows that a code of conduct, which includes voluntary spending limits, is not helping gamblers to spend less time and money on the machines. The report discovered that out of the 3.9 million FOBT sessions considered, fewer than 1,400 made use of a voluntary limit, and no evidence was found for the measures reducing the length of time spent on FOBTs or the amount of money lost. A spokesman for the Campaign for Fair Gambling said, "The early evidence is that the measures are failing. The Conservatives have been hoodwinked yet again, and the bookmakers found lacking yet again." And finally, a low-budget Christian film has shot to incredible success in the US, faring better than many of the latest Hollywood blockbusters. War Room, the story of an elderly woman who helps a couple through marital difficulties by turning a closet in their house into a prayer room, grossed over $11 million on its opening weekend. Last weekend, the film, starring 3 relatively unknown actors, was shown in around 1,000 cinemas and did better than Tom Cruise's latest Mission Impossible installment, which was shown in more than 3,000 locations. It is the latest film by independent producers the Kendrick brothers, whose company seeks to honour Jesus Christ by making his truth and love known worldwide.
This film is about the power of prayer and the necessity of prayer in our lives.
In Matthew 6, Jesus said, when you pray, go into your inner room, in your secret place.
We seek God first before going to war, if you will.
That verse and that passage is one of the keys to this movie. It's really easy to make prayer an afterthought. We want people to begin to fight their battles in prayer first. If you look at the history of the church, the history of revival and the Great Awakenings, it always was connected to people unifying and praying for the Lord to work in that situation. And that's what we want to happen in our generation.
The brothers also distributed Bible study plans to churches and ministers who used the film for discussion with their congregations. A timely reminder there of the power of prayer ahead of next Friday's vote on assisted suicide. Well, that's all for this week. For regular updates and information on all of our stories, plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.